On the evening of Saturday, August 22, 2009, 29-year-old Toni Sharpless stepped out of her home at 9:30 p.m., ready for a night of fun in Philadelphia. With her that evening was her friend Crystal Johns. The two women climbed into Toni's black 2002 Pontiac Grand Prix and drove into Center City, where they ended up at the G Lounge nightclub. The duo stayed until the club shut its doors around 3 a.m., after which Toni and Crystal made their way to the home of Willie Green, who was, at the time, a professional basketball player for the Philadelphia 76ers. Crystal was already friends with Green's brother, so it's unclear whether the women had met Willie at the nightclub or if plans had been made in advance. At Green's home, the night continued with a small gathering until an offhand remark by Toni shifted the mood. Green heard the comment and perceived it as disrespectful, and what followed was a tense exchange. Supposedly, Toni's response was angry and erratic, with witnesses recalling her dumping a bottle of champagne onto the kitchen floor and going around kicking items in the house. By this time, around 5 a.m., Green had had enough and told the women it was time for them to leave. Once outside and back in Toni's car, Crystal voiced her concern that neither of them was in any state to drive. But Toni, agitated and defiant, turned to Crystal and said, "Get the F out of my car." Crystal stepped out, and without another word, Toni drove away. Crystal assumed cooler heads would prevail and that Toni would realize her mistake and return to pick her up, but she didn't come back. Later that morning, once Crystal made it back home, she reached out to Toni's sister, Toni Sharpless, to explain what had happened between her and Toni. She explained that Toni had left her stranded, but Toni had unsettling news too. Toni had not returned home. With the realization that no one had seen or heard from Toni since she drove away, Crystal contacted the police and Toni filed a missing persons report. Early speculation was that Toni, intoxicated and tired, may have driven down a boat ramp by mistake and plunged into the Schuylkill River. However, while a search of the river uncovered 12 vehicles beneath the water's surface, none belonged to Toni. Less than a month later, in September 2009, an automated license plate reader in Camden, New Jersey, just across the Delaware River from Philadelphia, recorded a hit on Toni's car. Despite the efforts of authorities, Toni's car was nowhere to be found. In October 2009, Toni's mother hired a private investigator, Eileen Law. Law quickly established a website and a hotline urging the public to come forward with information. Tips began flooding in, with one tip in particular standing out. A woman working a late-night security shift reported seeing an abandoned black sedan, matching Toni's vehicle, beneath an overpass in Camden, New Jersey, on her way home at around 1 a.m. She said that she had notified the police, but oddly, there was no record of her call. 3 years would pass, and then, in December 2012, a potential breakthrough arrived in the form of an anonymous letter. The handwritten note, scrawled on yellow legal-size paper, was postmarked November 29, 2012, from Trenton, New Jersey. The writer revealed they had been contacted by a friend in late September 2009, just weeks after Toni's disappearance. For $5,000 in cash, they were asked to transport a black Pontiac Grand Prix from nearby Brooklawn, New Jersey, to a shop in Boston. The writer admitted they had needed the money and had accepted the job, delivering the car to Boston the very next day. Upon arrival, they not only took the car's license plates, but also cleared out the glove compartment. It was then, they implied, that they discovered what appeared to be Toni Sharpless's cell phone. When they returned to Camden, their friend told them more about the car's backstory. According to them, the vehicle wasn't stolen. Instead, it was missing. The friend claimed that an acquaintance, a Camden police officer, had gotten into a fight with a woman who subsequently died. In an effort to avoid scrutiny, they needed the car removed from New Jersey. The letter writer, however, made it clear that they had no direct knowledge of what had happened or whether the woman involved was Toni Sharpless. The writer explained that they had stored the items, including the cell phone, in a box in their garage and had forgotten about them. It was only recently, upon rediscovering the box, that they decided to write the letter. To substantiate their claims, the writer included specific details: the license plate number of Toni's black Pontiac Grand Prix, the last 5 digits of its vehicle identification number, and Toni's cell phone number. The former chief of police of West Brandywine, Walter Werner, acknowledged the letter's significance, but also its potential limitations. Werner noted that the license plate number of Toni's car was readily available from the various news reports about the case. But the last 5 digits of the vehicle identification number, as well as Toni's cell phone number, were not public knowledge. To this day, the disappearance of Toni Sharpless remains unsolved. On September 13, 1991, 37-year-old Tom Roche, a resident of Burbank, California, dropped off his 32-year-old girlfriend, Barbara Rondeau, at work, making plans to meet her later for lunch. However, lunchtime came and went with no sign of Tom. Barbara grew concerned, and after finishing work, she hurried home, only to find the front door unlocked. Inside, Tom's newspaper remained untouched, a habit he maintained every morning, and there was a motorcycle battery on the counter, something he had planned to work on that day. Tom had told her that he intended to stay home for most of the day, and Barbara assumed he had changed his plans without telling her. In the days before cell phones, there really wasn't much of an option other than waiting, hopeful that he would soon return or at least call home to let her know he was okay. But when the following day arrived and there was still no word from Tom, Barbara's concern deepened. She reported him as missing, and soon after, detectives launched an investigation into his disappearance. When detectives canvassed the area for potential witnesses, a neighbor came forward claiming to have seen Tom engaged in a conversation with an unidentified white male at around 9:30 a.m. the day he went missing. The witness described Tom standing alongside the man, both talking while looking into the bed of a brown pickup truck. According to the neighbor, it seemed like a normal conversation. Despite this lead, detectives struggled to determine whether Tom had fallen victim to foul play or if he had simply left of his own accord. 6 days after Tom vanished, Barbara received a chilling letter at their apartment. The letter, written by an anonymous individual, claimed responsibility for Tom's abduction and death. "I am suffering a great deal of guilt right now about what I have done, and I feel it is necessary to write about it, for my sake and yours. You don't know me and hopefully never will, but I am the one who killed Tom Roche. I cannot and will not go to jail. I could never handle it. I almost lost my mind. Never again. I loved being in Vietnam. In fact, those were the happiest days of my life. I felt such a rush whenever I had a confirmed kill that it was hard to switch it off when I came back to the States. For 18 long years I have held this in check, despite the nightmares and fantasies about killing. This Jeffrey Behemer thing really got to me, and I wondered if I could still do it. I figured LA would be the best place for what I had in mind. I did not want just a random thing, because you can get caught that way, so I set up a plan. I met Tom in a strip joint in the valley and got to talking. He fell for it, and we arranged to meet on Friday the 13th. I must assure you that it was neat and that it was quick. I do not think he suffered at all. I am very sorry for what I have done, and I know in time that the guilt will leave me. So will your pain." Barbara turned the letter over to investigators for a thorough analysis. After a review, police believed Jeffrey Behemer was a misspelling of Jeffrey Dahmer, the infamous serial killer who had been arrested just a few months earlier, in July 1991. Along with the letter, the sender included some of Tom's personal belongings, his earring, which he had been wearing the day of his disappearance, and his driver's license. Then, 4 months later, on January 11, 1992, police in Placer County, California, 500 miles north of Burbank, were called to a remote hillside where fragments of bones were discovered. Among the remains, several personal items were found, including a duffel bag containing a flashlight, a hunting knife, an empty prescription bottle, 2 pairs of prescription eyeglasses, a boot, and several shirts. After DNA testing, the bones were confirmed to be those of Tom Roche, and the cause of death was determined to be a single gunshot wound. Based on the personal items discovered at the scene, investigators believe Tom's killer had driven him on a 500-mile trip before ending his life. Despite numerous efforts, the person responsible for Tom's murder was never identified, and the mysterious author of the letter was never traced. To this day, Tom Roche's death remains unsolved. At the beginning of 2006, the FBI's Seattle field office received an anonymous letter, postmarked January 23, 2006, from Las Vegas, Nevada. The letter was purportedly connected to the shooting death of United States Attorney Thomas C. Wales, which occurred in 2001. Thomas C. Wales, a seasoned prosecutor with 18 years of service in Seattle, was shot on October 11, 2001, around 10:40 p.m., when he was struck by gunfire through his basement window. A lone male suspect was seen fleeing the scene, but the case went cold after limited evidence surfaced. Okay, so I was broke and between jobs. I got an anonymous call offering money to shoot the guy, so I drove to Seattle to do the job. I did not even know his name. Just got laid off from a job. Nice talking lady. I didn't know her name. She called me, talked to me by name, and asked if I needed some money. I agreed to pursue the matter. Hell, I was going bankrupt. Go to Seattle. Heck, I lived there once. No big deal. Hang out in this guy's backyard. She even gave me the address. Stop off at a place, pick up our gun, and drop it off at a specified location when you are done. Then, you will be directed to where your money is. The wife was out of town. I had no witnesses here. I was curious about who knew me so well. I used cash to pay for all my expenses to avoid an audit trail. No cell phone. I was directed to a place to pick up the gun they wanted me to use, and an address. And the gun was there. I drove to the address and then parked some distance away, north of downtown. I kind of camped out in the backyard of this house and waited for the guy to settle in at his computer. Once he was there, I took careful aim. I shot 2 or possibly more times and watched him collapse. I absurdly waited a few minutes and then left. I was sure he was dead. Retracing my steps, I dropped off the gun, found my money, and returned to Vegas. I feel bad about it, but I needed the money, and there were no witnesses. I really don't know who fronted the money, but the money was there, and I sure needed it. The letter was analyzed by profilers in the FBI's Behavioral Analysis Unit at the FBI Academy in Quantico, Virginia. The profilers suggested that the letter's author could potentially be connected to the murder, but they noted that the letter contained some factual inconsistencies and unrealistic claims. Additionally, it didn't reveal any new details that hadn't already been made public. Investigators have speculated that the return address name, Gidget, may be a term the writer has used in different contexts, both in the past and present. However, the return address listed on the envelope was a commercial address in Las Vegas, which appeared to have no clear link to the case. The FBI, alongside the Seattle Police Department, still believes the letter is a potential lead in the case, but the identity of both the shooter and the woman who allegedly hired him remains unknown. In an effort to gather more information, the Department of Justice is offering a $1 million reward for any details that lead to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons responsible for the murder. Anyone with information about the letter or its author is urged to contact the FBI toll-free at 866-322-7009 or write to FBI, 1110 3rd Avenue, Seattle, Washington, 98101. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Fireside Unsolved. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Until next time, take it easy and be easy, you filthy bastards.